Let me just tell you a little bit about myself and why I am running for governor. As most of you know, I was the mayor of Nashville for 8 years. I served from 2007 to the end of September of 2015. Before that, I had been in public office. I had worked as an assistant public defender, and then I was elected public defender on 3 different occasions. And that work was really important because you represent people who are poor, you give them their day in court, you do the best to make sure that their constitutional rights are protected. But you also can learn a lot. I certainly learned a lot about poverty. I learned a lot about the effects of drug addiction, of alcoholism, and of mental illness. After my time as public defender, I became the law director for the city of Nashville, which means you're the city's lawyer. You run a law office of about 35 people who handle all the city's work, and you get to understand the inside working of the government. And then in 2007, I decided that I wanted to run for mayor. Bill Purcell, who had asked me to become law director, had done his 2 terms and he was not running for re-election. And so I decided to get into the race. And I got into the race. I was the least well-known candidate. But I had some ideas and visions about what I thought Nashville needed to do to really move forward. My early memory of that race is early on in the race they did this online poll in the city paper. I don't know if you remember the city paper, but it was a handout newspaper. And they do this poll that is entirely non-scientific. It is just go online and vote as many times as you want. So the poll results come out and I am dead last. And worse than being dead last, I'm like 5%. And I remember coming down to breakfast, this is about 5 or 6 months before the election, to go out and campaign, and my wife was there having breakfast with my middle child, my daughter Frances, who was then probably 13 years old. And so Ann and I started talking about the poll and about where I stood in the poll. And I look over at my daughter, and her face is getting more and more concerned, like she's almost on the verge of crying. And she got up and she walked over to me and she said, Dad, you can still get out. You can still drop out of this. Luckily, I didn't. I hung in there and I won, and I was elected mayor. And as you know, I had really 2 very different terms as mayor. My first term, I got elected and Nashville was moving forward sort of at a steady pace, had a lot of things going for it. But about 8 or 9 months later, the country goes into the deepest recession since the Great Depression. And we had to respond to that. We had to manage the city in such a way that we would balance the budget without raising taxes. And we had to make sure that we were doing things to invest in the city's future. So I ran on a platform where I talked about public education, public safety, and economic development. I knew I had to make cuts, and we cut almost every department 15 to 20%, but we didn't cut education. We didn't cut public safety. And we didn't stop working on economic development. We continued to invest in the city. It was during that time that we redid the lease. We got it so that the predators would not leave town, which turned out to be a good thing. We worked hard to build a new convention center that took the hospitality and tourism industry through the ceiling in terms of how much it was bringing into the city. And we aggressively recruited new business and retained business in the city. After a period of time, we started coming out of the recession. We became sort of the it city. We had the TV show Nashville. The crane started appearing, and the boom began. And then in my second term, the city was taking off. And we were able to do some things that I wanted to do from the very beginning. We were able to move starting teacher pay from 30th in the state to 3rd. We were able to invest in libraries, which I care a lot about. I think libraries are absolutely essential. We invested in greenways and in parks and in making Nashville a better place to live. And the boom that exists today, was really, that's where it began. And when I left office in 2015, I've been teaching. I taught at Belmont University, political science, law, history, and I decided I wanted to run for governor. And the reason I'm running for governor is this, is I am convinced that the people of Tennessee want a pragmatic, common sense, get it done governor who's not an ideologue, someone who's going to focus on the issues that really matter to people and get the job done in a way that moves our state forward. And to focus on issues that really matter to the voters. You know, one of the things that I think a mayor brings to this campaign and could bring to the office of the governor is this, and it's no coincidence, I think, that the last two governors, Bill Haslam and Phil Bredesen, were mayors. When you run for mayor in Nashville, you don't run in a partisan race. You know, you run to nonpartisan race, and you got to get Democrats, Republicans, and independents to support you. And then when you do the job, you don't do it along party lines. The only question you're asking yourself is not what the party wants. You're asking yourself, is what's going to make this a better city for people to live in? What's going to make life better for Nashvillians? What's going to move this city forward? So you look at issues on what's best for people. And that's what we did. You know, there's a famous quote from Mayor LaGuardia of airport fame, but the mayor of New York during the 1930s once said, "There's no Democrat or Republican way of picking up the trash. People just want the trash picked up." And people want to see their government perform and make their lives better. To me, the three big issues in this campaign are, number one, public education. You know, I believe public education is the overriding issue for the state. It is the issue that will move our state forward in a way that is the most dramatic. It is the issue that will improve the lives of our young people. It is the issue that will strengthen our economy, that will make us a safer state, and will make us a healthier state. We need to be a state that produces more college graduates, but at the same time, we have to recognize we need to be a state for the young people who choose not to get a four-year degree, that they have the opportunity to get the vocational, technical, and apprenticeship training where they can get a job, where they can raise a family. We need to pay our teachers more. You know, I hear that. When I go to rural counties, when I talk to superintendents, and I've done teacher roundtables and talked to superintendents all over the state, when I talk to them, one of the things they say, particularly the rural ones, is that, you know, we lose teachers all the time because another district can pay, a more urban district can pay $10,000, $12,000 more. We lose them because other states can pay more. Or we lose them because there's more attractive offers in the private sector. And that's particularly true for the subjects that we're really trying to focus on, science, advanced math. And so we need to make sure that all parts of the state can pay their teachers so that they can keep them. When I was in Memphis, and I talked to the group looking on STEM issues in Memphis, science and math there, their big issue is keeping teachers because of teacher salary. That is a critical issue for our state. We need to attract the best, and we need to keep the best. All right, the second issue to me is jobs and economic opportunity. I'm a big believer, having been a mayor during the dark hours of the recession, I'm a big believer that you've got to have a strong private sector that is creating jobs, creating opportunities where people can get ahead, where they can live the American dream. And when you have a strong economy, when you have a strong private sector, you're creating a tax base that allows you to do the investments you need to make in education and healthcare and other areas that makes Tennessee have a higher quality of life. That is absolutely essential. Part of that is doing rural broadband. Part of that is having great schools. But we have got to take care of the communities that have not had the same economic success as other parts of the state. We can't leave anyone behind. And then the third area is health care. I agree with Governor Bredesen that is the issue you hear the most about when you're going around the state. You know, the worst mistake our legislature has made in decades was the decision not to do the Medicaid expansion. And let me tie that back to what I said at the beginning about making decisions not on party lines or not on ideology, but on what's best for the people. You know, by doing Medicaid expansion, our state would have received over the past few years somewhere between $3.5 and $4 billion. That's money that would have given access to health care to people of low incomes, to people with disabilities, people with pre-existing conditions, people changing jobs, and people who are aging. And the legislature did not do that because they made it into a national political issue. It all became about who was the president or whose idea this was. It wasn't about how can we help the citizens of Tennessee. It was about how can we make a political point. And that's not how you should make decisions. We should do what's right for the people. So we should have done the Medicaid expansion. As a result of not doing Medicaid expansion, what it means on a human level is that people who don't have insurance don't go to the doctor because they think they can't pay for it, and they're embarrassed, or they just think, I can't do this, and they don't, and they suffer as a result, and that's wrong. People go to receive medical care, and they get stuck with huge bills that put them in financial ruin. Or people go and they are unable to pay their bills, and there's no reimbursement for the hospital. And what happens then? Well, what's happened is that around the state, in rural areas largely, 10 of our hospitals have closed. We are second only to Texas in the number of hospital closures. All right? And so what that means is that when your hospital closes and you're a small town, it's that much harder to keep people in your community. It's that much harder to attract new people, and it's that much harder to attract business. The next governor of Tennessee has got to be a champion for this state to get its fair share of Medicaid dollars, to make sure that our people have access to health care, and that we are a viable state in terms of attracting people and keeping people. One other thing on the health issue. When we talk about health, we tend to be absorbed with this Medicaid issue. There are a lot of other issues. There are costs that need to be controlled and so forth. But the big issue with health in Tennessee is just how unhealthy we are. Women's health, we rank like 43rd or 44th on the bad side out of 50 states. And almost every major health indicator, whether it's diabetes, heart disease, early childhood deaths, we rank in from 40 to 50. And that we've got to get a grip on that for us and for the future of our citizens. Look, this is a great state. It is, I've been from Mountain City to Memphis. I've been to 84 or 85 counties and counting during this campaign. And we've got so much going for us. I mean, we got a central location. We generally have temperate weather. We are a state that has a sound fiscal management. We are a state that has low taxes. We have a good business climate. We have a lot of things that make us tremendously appealing. And I really believe that Tennessee's best days are still ahead of us. When I was mayor in Nashville and working my way through the recession, and then we had the flood, which I'm kind of thinking about today, in May 2010, the worst natural disaster in the city in 75 years on top of the recession. I never stopped having faith that we were going to be fine, that we were going to recover, that we were going to be the best place in a special place, and our best days were still to come. I feel that same way about this state. This state has a wonderful future, but we've got to take care of the basics, and that's health care, that's economic opportunity, and that's public education. This campaign is winnable. I feel very good about where we are in terms of the campaign we're running around the state, the staff that we've assembled, the fundraising we've done. But all that doesn't matter more than the fact that I need your votes. I need your help. So I'm asking for your vote. I'm asking for your support. I'm asking you to get involved in the campaign. Go to karldean.com. You can learn more there. And I certainly appreciate this opportunity to speak to what is, by all interpretations, a wonderful crowd, a big crowd, and a sign of just how strong the Democratic Party is. Thank you.